Well, welcome everybody back to another episode of Prepper Talk Radio. We're super excited to be on the air with you. And we've got Scott and I, Paris Clough, in the house today. Shane had some things he had to take care of, but Scott and I are going to hold down the fort. We're going to talk to you a little bit today about inflation, deflation, supply chain, what's going on in America today with some of the economical issues we're having and how that affects us as preppers and how we can be better prepared for those types of things. But before we jump into that, I wanted to kind of give you guys a reminder that Jase Medical is one of the companies that we really highly recommend you have an opportunity to go to their website and enter in the code Prepper Talk and get your antibiotics. You know, when there's an emergency that hits or when something happens, you want to be ready ahead of time. That's the whole purpose and point of being prepared, being ready, and having those antibiotics on hand and ready to go is an excellent way to do that. And Jase Medical has a fantastic product with the Jase case, and you get $10 off if you enter the code Prepper Talk. Another thing that's critical and important is we just had our first inaugural Ready Summit, and we're one of the main sponsors for that event. So make sure you go to thereadysummit.com and you join there. I think the prices have gone up, but if you still do Prepper Talk, we'll give you you can get a discount. And what that is a program where you can get classes on various subjects of preparedness by experts, by subject matter experts in their fields to be able to make sure that you're ready to go in various different ways. And they'll help you. They're actual videos where you can actually learn skill building and you can learn how to really do things and get prepared and get ready. So that's another one of the ones that we really want you to go and take a look at. And it helps support the show, helps keep us moving forward and helps. We'd love to have you support us in that way. So I know Scott has some expertise a little bit more in the Ready Summit if he wants to add a little bit. But other than that, let's jump right into what in the world's going on in the economy right now. Are we headed towards inflation, deflation? I mean, stagflation?
What's interesting? Like there's inflation, there's official inflation number, and then there's the real inflation number. I actually saw a meme today for that, and it had the inflation number, and it was Shaquille O'Neal, and then it had the reported inflation number, and that was Kevin Hart, the little tiny comedian dude.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, Shaq's huge. I'm like, oh yeah, that's accurate.
That's a great visual.
It's what's funny though is like you look at what's going on across the markets, and at least the ones that I'm paying attention to, like gold and silver, they're down. Doesn't make any sense. So we know that's being artificially pushed. Auto sales were way up, but now I'm starting to see those come down. Fuel, everyone's like, oh, it's coming down. It's still up, guys. Like, pay attention. It is way up still. Like
from where it was, but gratefully it did come down from its peak though.
Well, it's 459 where I live.
Yeah, wasn't it 5 something a couple of weeks ago?
I don't remember it being 5 something, but it was 493 the last I got gas. At the height when I was getting gas was 493. If it went over 5, I don't remember, or I just didn't fill up that week. I probably was just like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm stopping.
Right. Yeah, it was 550 at the gas station where I go. What? And then just this last Saturday, I filled up for 490. So I was like, down 60 cents it's still up from what it was, but it's still better than I'm grateful for down 60 cents.
It's still up $1.50.
Yeah.
Like what? So inflation is still here. I mean, it's not going away. I've watched the home prices in my area drop a little bit, like 2%. And we live in Utah, which is supposed to be not going to be affected with any housing crisis or bubbles because there's so much job demand, but yet nobody can find a job here. They're bringing in people from out of state and paying them more. I don't see a lot of people getting jobs locally. More people are complaining about it. So is inflation getting any better? No, I can only see it getting worse. And food, it's still going up and up and up. You know, just a few.
I was going to say a great investment is to get some food now because as things are going up, that's a great way to store some cash with your 90-day. The last episode we did was on the 90-day pantry, and what better way to kind of, I actually had a guy that I was watching, an economist, and he was saying, sometimes I'll go and buy a year's worth of toothpaste because in a year from now, it's going to be way more than it is today. And so I'll just whenever Amazon has like a 50% off deal, I'll just buy a bunch of toothpaste, and then you have all that. And that's a great way to actually invest and save money, because it's going to be higher next year than it is now. So those big bulk items that you can get, that's a great way to kind of average your costs.
And it's supposed to be a 90-day storehouse, and he gets it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a storehouse, like making your own home a store for yourself. So you want to buy everything on discount. You want to buy everything cheaper than when you're using it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's funny because people buy more when they have coupons. They're like, oh, I've got coupons, I'm going to spend more. Well, you're missing the point. If you're not saving money, you're supposed to, like, the whole idea about coupons originally was you take the money that you don't spend, the money that you save, and you invest it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, for me, it's always like, okay, I only have $200 for the budget for this week to go buy groceries. Let's go buy groceries. We use the coupons to keep the money where it needs to be, keep the budget where it needs to be. And what's funny is like, you look at everybody else and they're like, spend more. Oh, we're good. Spend more. Oh, I'll get it 20 extra cents off this. I'm going to spend $3 more on something else.
Yeah.
And there's just so many bad choices going on in the economy already, going on and just purchasing mindsets already. And I mean, I've gone down, I've cut our income expenditures, we've cut down over the last 4 years, almost 40%.
Wow. That's great.
And in the last year, our food has gone up and our gas has gone up to match how much we've already cut down from the last 4 years. Like, we've just been steadily coming down, and then, oh, never mind. And you're like, what happened to our budget?
Yeah. All that savings you thought you were having is now back. Wow,
Oh yeah.
That's crazy.
And everything we thought we were putting away is now coming back out to pay for stuff, but we don't have to buy as much. And we know that this isn't permanent. We know this is short-term because all markets cycle, but it's always nice to be able to say, you know what? We bought a lot of peanut butter when it was cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
We bought a lot of tuna fish when it was cheaper, a lot of pasta when it was cheaper, and we can use that for a while without having to go buy a bunch.
Yeah.
Right. Wait for it to go back on sale again. And that, oh man, the economy is just, it's nuts, dude. And it's
one
not
of the
just
things one of the things I think is super funny is that, for decades, economists have defined a recession as 2 quarters of negative GDP growth. Mm-hmm. So January, February, March, quarter 1, April, May, June, quarter 2, negative growth in the GDP. Gross domestic product. That's what GDP stands for those of you who don't know. And we've seen it. That's textbook definition of a recession. But no, what does the Biden administration say? Well, we kind of want to just, we're going to redefine what recession means so that we don't look so bad. And so he redefines recession. And then, somebody Powell, they call him Papa Powell as a joke on all the memes, but I can't remember. Anyways, he's the chairman of the Fed right now. He comes out and he says, well, we're kind of in a recession, but we're really not, because employment is solid. Usually one indicator of a recession is employment is down. Well, okay, there's 17, I don't know how many indicators there are, but there's a ton of indicators that we're in a recession. And all of them are proving we're in a recession, but the one. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, this one actually said, so how does that one thing trump everything else that proves that we're in a recession? And it's just, so a lot of these economists now are like, they're just laughing at the administration. They're
That's
like,
what Clinton did, though. Like, Clinton's like, oh, I did not have sexual relations with that woman. He changed definitions as well. Like, right? This isn't new to politics. Mm-hmm. And we're going to see a lot more changed to try to suit the narrative.
Yeah.
And it gets crazier. Like, you're smiling, I'm smiling, because we know, like, it's crazy. It's stupid.
Yeah. It's like, come on. Another thing that's funny is that, the July numbers, when you guys listen to this podcast, the July numbers will have come out. I think they come out August 10th, which is, as the recording of this video is tomorrow, or this podcast is tomorrow. And so, I was listening to a guy today talk about how an economist was talking about how this is what I bet Biden says, when the July report comes out, he says, we're growing. Everything's going well. Everything's strong, focusing on all these positive things. And it's like, hey, nothing to see here. Background, the house is burning, the building's burning down, car crashes, but nothing to see back there. Look over here. I'm going to show you all the good stuff. And there are a few things that are potentially good with that. Some of the things are leveling off, and so that's kind of good. But
Right.
it's like, and one of the funny things I was just laughing about, I was like, they blamed the gas prices going up on Putin and the war in Ukraine, and it's all his fault that's going up. But boy, are they sure going to take credit for the fact that it's gone down 25
Mhm.
cents, in the last month or two.
Right.
It's all their fault. It's when the good things happen, they take credit, but when bad thing happens, you put it on somebody else. That's a sure sign of somebody who has no idea what they're doing.
Oh, it's crazy. And then, okay, then you stack in all the other variables of things going on right now, right? We have less water. We're in a drought where we live in the West. There's places like Kentucky that are flooding. The the water reserves here in the West are disappearing. And they're like, it's because people are using too much water and they're not saving any water for downstream. And I had a really fantastic video that I watched just the other day. And this guy from the Forest Service, he's probably going to get fired for having done this video, is actually talking about how the water is actually flowing faster out of the dams than it is coming in. And that's because they're in California, they're turning off all the other power plants and they're relying on hydro water more than they've ever relied on it. And so they have to open the floodgates more to get more power to get to
What?
California. So the real reason the water's disappearing in Lake Mead and Lake Powell is freaking California is being stupid with their resources they already have. Right. And then you look at the Northeast and you see the nuclear power plants. Have you heard about this?
Mm-mm.
So the nuclear power plant up, I believe in Massachusetts or Maine, somewhere up Northeast, they're talking about they need to shut that down because it's affecting the water around and the ecosystems around the nuclear power plant. They're saying that the Hudson's boiling or something like that.
Oh, I saw that.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, the water is like bubbling up, and they said it wasn't hot or anything like that. It was just boiling up. That's just weird.
But they're saying one guy, the reports are that it's boiling because of the nuclear reactor, and there's just it's interesting. They're blaming it on things that I don't think have a history of having any valid data.
Yeah.
So how is it all of a sudden hotter? How is it all of a sudden causing this that it hasn't been causing this before? How is this a new thing?
Yeah,
Have
it's
they
never
changed
happened
something?
before. I did watch that video, and some guy was saying, who was a river guide or something. He said, "I've never seen this in my whole life on the Hudson." And so here we are, like, we're ready to make all these decisions based on, like, why are you shutting it down so fast? Let's do some research. Let's figure out what's really going on here before we start getting crazy.
Let's let a public group come and test it. Not a government, not an NGO. Like, let's get or not a government group, not a 3-letter group.
Yeah.
Some randoms, bring them in and have it tested and see if it really is an effect. See if it really is caused by the power plant. And it's like, same thing with the economy. Like, everything right now is the most smoke and mirrors of my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like I've ever seen this much weird stuff going on at once.
Yeah.
I mean,
another thing I was thinking about, or is the supply chain is they had for so long all these boats off of the coast of different ports waiting to unload their stuff, and so there were screaming shortages. Everything was talking about shortages. Well, a recent report came out that a lot of these major corporations now have overages. Their warehouses, they have surpluses, and so they're going to have to bring. And what's really cool, as I thought this was really cool, anyways, was that the consumers aren't buying stuff because there's no confidence in the market right now. There's so much chaos happening economically that people are being smart finally with their money, and they're realizing, wait a minute, I'm not going to buy stuff if I don't need it. I'm going to keep stuff and buy what I need. I'm going to keep my money in my bank account and buy what I need as I need it. And so because of that, a lot of these big retailers are going to have to probably bring their prices down to attract people in to buy some stuff. So the reality is now we're in a deflation, and that's deflationary. That's a deflation. So we're 1 month we're headed to inflation, and the next month we're headed in, we're in a deflation potential because of all the surplus. It's like, you can't even turn around fast enough to be able to catch all this stuff. And
well, the interesting thing is $971 million of goods were returned so far in 2022. that were
Wow.
purchased in 2020 and 2021. So like people are like buying all the stuff because they're home, locked at home. They're like, what am I gonna? I don't know. I got nothing to do. So I'm gonna buy a bicycle and an Xbox and all this stuff. And they're like, I don't need this. I'm gonna return it. And now they're
Wow.
returning all this stuff, and that's part of the problem they have. And the cargo ships are finally unloading. So it's like all the goods are finally coming in, and all the things that everyone bought are getting sent back. And so it's just like two massive floods of deflationary situations coming in, which I'm like, fantastic. Please let that
Mhm.
happen to cars. Please let it happen to electronics. Please let it happen to food, but it's not going to happen to food unless there's some cargo ships with freeze-dried food somewhere. But
Mhm.
it's fantastic to watch certain aspects correct themselves
Mhm.
without the government manipulation. It's fantastic. But it's still like, what is going on?
Right. And being a financial guy, I'm super excited that people are finally like smart and being wise with their money and saying, look, we're not going to just spend money because your commercial said we should. We're not going to just buy your stuff because, the ad on the Facebook
Yep.
said I should. You're going to be like, wait a minute, I don't want to buy this just because. And so people are getting, I hope it stays around and sticks
Mm-hmm.
around because, being smart and wise with your money is that's self-reliance. That's being prudent. That's just being wise. And I hope people still do it. And that's where a lot of these retailers, one of the reports was the retailers were shocked that consumers are acting the way they are, not buying the stuff. And so they weren't prepared for that. So that's why part of the reason why these surpluses are here. And then when I heard that, I was like, yes, go consumer, stop,
Mm-hmm.
think, and just pay attention and
Yeah.
buy if you need it. Don't buy because you want it or because the ad said you should get it. And so that was really cool. And I didn't realize that I hadn't realized that some of these ships were finally offloading their stuff
Yeah.
and they were getting surpluses now. And I know there's still some crazy stuff happening in the ports. And so there's still stuff that's, coming down the pipe. So we're not out of the woods by any means, but man.
So one of the problems they're having at the ports in California specifically is the truckers are fighting because California changed their legislation on who can drive. You have to work for a large company. You can no longer be a private driver
Oh,
operator.
wow.
And so there's like these huge issues going on there. But then also companies are rejecting the orders saying, hey, it wasn't delivered on time. We don't want it anymore. And the port's
What?
like, well, what are we going to do with all this? And so they're selling it to liquidators. And liquidators are bundling it on pallets and trying to sell it as fast as they can. And for like $400, they're showing pallets of like a bicycle, a big screen TV, and like each one of those items is like $200-300, right? And all this stuff, and it's probably like $1,000-2,000 worth of stuff. But realistically, I'm in this business. Like I do this. That's what my wife and I do. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're going to buy that pallet for $400 and sell it for maybe 800 to 1,000 max, even though it's worth up to 2,000. Or you're going to have to sell it discounted just to be able to compete and to move your product. Otherwise, you're going to be
Mm-hmm.
storing it forever.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like all the other liquidators that we talk to, they're seeing the same thing. They're like, all the liquidating companies here where we are trying to raise prices and get more competitive. And we're like, we'll sit on it. We'll wait. And they're like, whoa, we have too much. We have too much. What are we going to do with all this stuff? It's like, drop your prices. Drop
Yeah.
your prices. Reduce the auction issues, and it'll fix it. But it's like supply chain's crazy. Domestically, we have way more goods than we need, but we don't have enough food. And so supply chain, it's like, okay, how do we fix that? You grow a freaking garden.
Mm-hmm.
How do you fight the inflation? Grow a freaking garden. Get some
Yeah.
chickens. If you can't have chickens, get some pheasants. Get some quail. Get something.
Another
It's
thing I was
fixable.
thinking too is a lot of these people, a lot of the furniture we have is so manufactured, just cookie cutter, just crank it out, it's in and out, slam it, and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to fix that, but we should learn how to fix our furniture. If something's broken, don't just go buy a new one. That old saying, if wear it
Use it
out,
up. Use it
use it
up.
up,
Wear it out. Make it do, or do without.
or do without. And that's an amazing. That's something that's been around for decades, for hundreds of years, probably. And it's wise. And if we can learn the skills to repair the things that we have, rather than just throwing things away and buying new ones, I think that's another great way to be in a prepper mindset and to be a ready
Oh yeah,
mindset.
I think that's brilliant. We need to learn the skills to fix things ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember my dad would fix everything that we broke growing up. Like almost everything. There are certain things we'd destroy, and he'd be like, "I'm done. I'm not fixing that. It's going to the garbage." And we'd be like, "No, Dad, no." But like now, it's like my wife's like, "Hey, can you fix this?" And I'm all, "Let me see. Everything's an
Yeah, that's
experiment." It's like I've got a lot of the skills from my dad. Thank you, Dad. But there's so many things that I'm like, this is an experiment. This is new territory. I've never put one of these together,
yeah.
and or toys getting broken, and it's like, I'm not gonna go buy another toy.
Mm-hmm.
My kid's gonna have to go without. Like you're done. You know what's
Yeah.
there's that video that was popular last year or the year before. It's like you're done. You're done. Like you remember that one?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like,
My daughter still uses that. She's 17. She still does that all the time.
she sounds awesome.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. But it's true, dude. Like if you can learn how to repair your furniture, if maybe your chair breaks, if you can learn how to put the new leg on there, even if it
Mm-hmm.
looks weird for a minute, until you learn how
Yeah,
to maybe make it, lathe, get out of the lathe. I don't know if you've got a friend or neighbor that has more fancy equipment that you can make things look better, but goodness sakes,
we're starting to see an increase in garage sales now too. Have you noticed that around you?
Oh yeah.
I'm seeing a lot more than last year or the year before, obviously, but like I haven't seen this many in years. I think people are like, I need to just offload a bunch of the stuff that I don't use so that I can have money. So they can,
Hmm.
they're probably using it to fight inflation on food
Right.
or utilities. I mean, utilities in Utah go up 3% per year, which is above the national average of 1.5%. So it's like, how are we going to heat our home this year? I'm selling that comic book collection. I'm,
Right.
I'm selling
Yeah.
something that I don't use, like the things that don't make sense anymore. Let's get rid of it and fix it. Let's decrease what we're buying. As a financial guy, you're loving this, right?
Hmm.
Everyone's buying less. And the problem is though, we don't have any more money to invest somewhere.
Hmm. And my recommendation at first and foremost is to invest in food, invest in water,
Mhm.
invest in tools and supplies for yourself and your family to get through stuff. There's no better way to be prepared and to have an emergency fund than to have emergency stuff, emergency
Yeah.
skills and gear that your fund has purchased, and then have some cash on hand for some other things, and frankly, even have some um, things that you can barter or trade with. If the economy goes where we think and we know it's going to go, what good is it if I walk up to my neighbor and say, "Hey, I'll give you $10," and I have a $10 bill for that can of beans or whatever? He's going to say, "I don't care how many $10 bills you hand me.
Mhm.
I know what that dollar bill is worth, and it's going to be
Yeah.
worth." But if you hand that guy maybe, maybe you want a can of beans and you've got a can of, I don't know, rice. Maybe you guys can, make a meal together and eat together. That way you both win. Or maybe you can, you have some gold or something to barter with or trade with, because fiat currency is not going to be very barterable in the future if the economy goes where we think it is.
Where are you getting your cans of rice?
Well, I was, man, my brain was moving faster than my
I'm
mouth, and
like,
I didn't.
yeah. Wait, can of rice.
Yeah,
I'm
bag
like,
of
I guess
rice.
you can buy freeze dried rice, but I'm like, I'm thinking like walking down, looking through all the Campbell's, going, is there a can of rice in here?
Well, they do have rice soup or
Like,
soups with rice in it, I guess.
and it's fantastic. Like that's one of the things that's going to actually make your money go farther.
Hmm.
Buying stuff to use as filler food within your other meals. Like growing up, we always had extra potatoes or rice thrown into everything that my mom was making. It was
Hmm.
brilliant because there's nutrients in there and it helps fill you up. And so, like, we're actually getting way farther on way less. And now
Hmm.
it's like nobody does that. I don't
Yep.
see it anywhere. I've started buying more rice, just meals. Like if I go out to eat, it's like get extra rice, do this, get more rice, get this. So just to get used to eating it more. And
Hmm.
now I'm like, okay, now I got to start cooking it at home and getting the kids eating it because it worked. And I forgot that.
Yeah.
It's time to relearn some of those skills. I got to go talk to
Hmm.
my mom. So I got to thank my mom for the way she cooked. I got to thank my dad for the way he fixed everything. And I got to thank them both for the way they budget because, man, those skills, and that really goes back to my grandparents because they grew up in the Depression. Like
Yeah.
those skills that they have, like if you have someone around you that was alive in or around the Depression, you need to go talk to them today before they forget everything
Right.
or before they're gone, because that information, that knowledge, that wisdom is like a superpower going forward. Because I believe we're in a depression. I believe that it's only going to get worse before it gets better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay, because the market has to correct itself, and it's been artificially stopped from correction for what, 28 years?
I don't know how long, but it's a long time.
Should have been in the 90s. It should have corrected in the 90s. So we're way beyond where it should be. It's time for correction.
Yeah, that's crazy. I know a lot of the economists that I follow are saying that there's this cycle that happens that it corrects, and then so it goes down and then it goes up, and it usually does a cycle of down and up about 4 or 5 times before it does like a final down. And one of the guys was saying that we're in the second one of those, and so we have maybe 2 or 3 more, and then it's going to be a final blow. Well, by the time you guys listen to this podcast, it'll be about a month before the Fed makes another decision as to whether they're going to raise interest rates or not. And they just raised this in July. They raised it 0.75. So that's huge. And if they do another 0.75, we're going to see some problems going into at least first or second quarter of next year, when they may look at bringing it back down. But they're going to have to do some things here to. We can't sustain 9% inflation numbers. We can't, and that's actually a suppressed number, frankly.
Yeah.
The real number is like 16 or 17% probably. And so, especially in certain categories like food and gas and other places and fuel. But, by first, second quarter of next year, if they're not doing something, we're going to have to keep the seatbelt buckled, I would say, until at least then. And so if you've got extra cash or extra money, get your money invested into food, water, skills. If you got to pay somebody to teach you something, or gear, and then from there, I would say gold and silver, and if you have money even off after that, then maybe we can start talking about stock market stuff. But the reality is that you just got to get those basics, get that foundation, that strong foundation, and then build from there.
You just brought it back. I had the wrong name, but you just brought back the the real inflation situation. So I want to show you guys this. This is this is it. This is what it really is. Here we go, guys. This is actual inflation versus real inflation. I think I said Michael Hart at the beginning. It's Kevin Hart. But look at Shaq. I mean, he's huge. And yeah,
he's barely above his waist, pretty much.
It's like me with one of my kids. It's crazy how disparaged the difference of what our current situation is, versus what they're telling us it is.
Yeah.
And man, I think you're right. It's gonna have a couple more corrections before the final true correction goes through and does its thing.
Well, I try to follow smarter guys than me, so I get information from them, and they're like, "We've seen this." Matter of fact, I'm reading a book right now called the New World Order. No, it's it's something. It's I can't remember the name of it. Sorry. But it's Ray Dalio's book, The World Order. It's about how different economies change. And he went back over 500-600 years to look at the cycles of economy. And when an economy fails, it restarts with hard money, gold and silver. That's what restarts an economy. And then as it gets more confidence, it starts to be able to, you start to realize, wait a minute, gold is too heavy. I need something to represent the gold. So they get notes that represent the gold. And then they start to get even more confidence. And they're like, you know what, we're not going to have notes anymore to represent the gold. We're going to have notes to represent the, whatever, the backing of the, confidence. And then we're going to then they start having debt, where you can actually borrow against the notes for the gold, not actually have the note to represent the gold, but you can borrow and you get into further debt. And then the next cycle is where you start to have super confidence in that. And then the next cycle is where you get like gluttonous and you're like living high on the hog and everything's great. And the final cycle is a civil war or some kind of upheaval And sometimes it's physical, and there's one of 5 different ways that these usually end. And the 5th one of those is physical altercations. It's kinetic.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing, and the guy that's writes the book, Ray Dalio, says it's called
It's called the
changing world
changing world
order.
order.
Yeah, changing world order. So he wrote the book, and he says that we're in stage 5, and there's only 6 stages. Stage 6 is civil war, or what, some kind of altercation. And the United States we're right now, we're printing money like crazy. We just spent the last year, like literally, I don't know what the exact number is, but they said there was like $25 billion was the debt at the end of World War I or II. And they had $125 billion of debt they were printing every day for like the last little while. So like 5 times, we were having like 5 World War II, IIIs every day. And so and they were just printing money, like the dollars, the amount of dollar bills in circulation over the last year have like, it's more than has been over the last like 100 years or something. Like, I don't remember the exact statistics. I apologize. I didn't get all the numbers like ready to go before the podcast, but it's just, you can look up the data and get the information, but it's the idea is true. The concept of what I'm saying is right. Because with all of that, it's no wonder we have inflation. It's no wonder we've been propped up. And so now that we think everything's great, we've been living high on the hog, yeah, that correction is coming. And a lot of countries out there are waiting for us to make a decision, and they want to take over. They want to have the top seat. It's the old king of the hill,
Yep.
Every country is vying for it, and they all want to have it. And so United States is kind of teetering right now. We're like, okay, are we going to be strong enough? Is the dollar going to strengthen, or is the dollar going to stay weak and get weaker? And China's going to come up. Is Russia going to come up? It's just a lot of people want to have that, number one seat at the table, so to speak, for the monetary fund. And it's just,
then there's BRICS coming out, right?
saying that they want to have a world
and they're
currency.
going gold back, and it's going to be interesting to see how that really plays out. Is that going to lead? I know it's leading to an economic world war. That's what we're currently in right now, is an economic world war, and people don't pay attention to that, but it's real. Right.
Yeah.
And how much money is being sent over to Ukraine?
Way too much.
How much of that is being tracked? Did you know the Ukrainian government said that they only have been able to track 30% of it?
Wow.
70% they cannot tell you where it went. Right?
Yeah.
So that just shows proof that the money is being laundered.
Mm-hmm.
And who's it going back to? Is it going back to the big guy? Like everyone keeps saying, 10%, keep 10% for the big guy, and who is the big guy, right? The scary thing is as of 2021, December 2021, 80% of the money in circulation was printed in the last 22 months.
Oh, that's what I was saying. You got the numbers.
But in May of 2021, only 40% of the money in circulation was printed in the prior 22 months. So it's like, that's how fast they've shifted printing and moving that. And so hold on to your butts, guys. Like, it's going to be interesting to watch the next few years roll out. I think the correction's here to stay for a while. We are going into a depression. I'm no economist. I'm just a prepper, and I like watching these things. This kind of gets me excited because it's going to level some of the playing ground for a lot of people. It's going to get people to start focusing on skills, start focusing on bartering and trading. I mean, they're trying to tax everything now. But if you're trading stuff, where's the tax in that? How do you track that? So I'm excited about that idea. The more we can trade, the better it's going to be for our individual economies, right? Our home economies. But it's interesting because it can only get worse before it gets better. And food storage, home storage, eliminating things that you don't really need are the best bets right now.
Yeah.
Like, we're canceling subscriptions like left and right that we thought we needed for a while, but I'm like, yeah, we really don't need those. Let's get rid of those too. And you don't miss them. Like, we don't miss them at all. And it's kind of like, all right, we saved $20 here, saved $30 there. All right, what else can we cut that really doesn't help us? I think more people just need to start doing that. And I'm sure you're loving me saying that. Like, more people need to do that. And we need to just simplify where we're putting our time and money.
Absolutely. We're going to wrap this up. This episode is going to be a little shorter than others. And so we wanted to just give you some quick ideas and thoughts about what we have been seeing out there in the economy and what's going on, and give you some hope and the reality is that if you're they've got us dependent upon the supply chain because of the way our society and our communities have been set up. If we can go back to those basics, back to those foundational principles of self-reliance, making sure to realize that there's not you can't do everything, but you can do enough things that your skills can be tradable and usable and workable with people who have other skills that you may not have, and you can communicate, you can work together. Independent people can work interdependently to create a community that works well. And that's what we've created, but we've created it so big, we've created it so wide and so spread out that it's failing. And that's where we're seeing the problem. So if you'll just remember, the hope in all of this is if you'll learn the skills, go back to those basic principles of self-reliance, if you'll start to be wise with your money, wise with your resources, and build up a strong foundation, it doesn't matter what's happening in the overall economy, the macro economy. It won't matter. If the neighborhood, if the state next door is failing, you're fine because you're doing what you're supposed to do. It doesn't matter. Those big sky is falling or the earth is cracking open, doesn't matter, because you're ready, you're prepared, and whatever life throws at you, you're prepared to do it. You're ready for it. And that's what our goal is at Prepper Talk Radio, is to help you stay ready-minded and prepared for anything that life can throw at you. So if you'll please remember to go to our website at preppertalkradio.com. We're actually revamping that. We're getting some exciting things. So maybe don't go there right now, but maybe by the time you listen to this radio, it should be ready to go. By the time this podcast launches, it should be ready to go and up and running. So, and then go to our Facebook page and log in. This week, we're not going to be able to do some lives because of some things we're doing with our schedules, but next week we'll be doing lives again. And we do lives on YouTube channel. We do lives on our Facebook group every Thursday at 6 Mountain Time. So we'd love to see you there interacting with us and chatting with us. So until the next podcast, you guys have a great day, great week, and stay ready, stay prepared. Take care.